from Singapore to exchange and to share experiences, to learn from each other about the outbreaks that are happening in these settings. They're very similar conditions, and the fundamentals of what need to be done in each one of these closed settings are the same. So it was a very good opportunity to exchange and learn from one another to see how these outbreaks could be brought under control, and so that we could prevent them from further happening. And we hope to have more teleconferences like this. I think one of the things in this pandemic, and in all epidemics, the value of WHO and our partners is to bring people together, so that what through and how they are dealing with it can be shared, and each can learn from each other on that.
Next is for Health Policy Watch. We have Grace online. Grace? Grace, can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hi. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to ask for a little bit more clarity on the Costa Rica initiative. What is the difference between this and the ACT accelerator, and who has been supporting this initiative so far? Thank you.
First of all, this is complementary because it provides an operational framework for not only sharing knowledge, data related to COVID technologies, but also an opportunity to do a repository on open licensing, intellectual property, voluntary licensing. We are expecting an increased voluntary license through the Medicines Patent Pool and other licensing mechanisms. The Medicines Patent Pool has, for example, expanded its mandate already. Its board has approved expansion of mandate to include COVID products, and Unitate, which is the main funder of the patent pool, is has also approved the expansion of the mandate. So it will provide an opportunity for member states, for industry and research and academics in general to use the momentum, the solidarity momentum, to create a pool of knowledge and a pool of member states. The reason why this is only a pre-launch, we have several member states which are in negotiation with Costa Rica. More time to finalize the call to action. We didn't do a full launch today, but this is expected to happen in 2 weeks' time, and we will have member states from all regions coming in. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Simão, for this answer. Now we will go to Pian Huang from National Public Radio in the U.S. Pian, can you hear us?
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So yesterday, WHO published a paper in BMJ which gives a worst-case scenario of 190,000 deaths across Africa in the next year. That's bad, but it's much lower than a worst-case scenario of 3 million deaths that a UN report projected last month. The assumption now is that the virus will spread slower and have a lower mortality rate in Africa. I wanted to ask what has changed in our understanding.
Thanks for the question. I have to admit I haven't read that paper, but a reduction of deaths, but still saying 190,000 deaths is still a pretty, and I understand that this is a modeling analysis, and we know that estimates, these are very important for us to help plan and to help us prepare and to get countries ready for how to build the workforce. How many contact tracers do we need? How many clinicians and nurses and medical professionals do we need? How many beds do we need in particular ICU or oxygen support, ventilatory support, et cetera? And these scenarios that are estimated, the models that are really helpful for planning purposes. But we also know that there are tools that we have prevent these numbers from becoming realities, and that's for me, one of the most critical values of these models is to ensure that we take the right precautions, we put the right emphasis in these interventions done so that these numbers do not become reality.
Yeah, and if I could just maybe add, while the numbers in Africa are well below the rest of the world, and as testing rolls out, we may find more and more cases. It's also been clear in other regions that we've seen a potentially long period where the disease establishes itself. A moment comes when the disease takes off more exponentially. That time is not well determined. But we are seeing, increased activity over the last week in places like Gabon is at a 153% increase of cases in just a week. Zambia has equally had a large increase in cases. Chad has increased by over 100%. Benin has increased by over 200%. Now, the numbers remain low, but what's concerning is the trajectory, the direction of travel of the curve. So we need to be excel at this point, not to underrepresent the potential impact of the disease, recognizing that we must maintain other essential health services due to the fact that lockdowns are very extreme public health and social measures aimed at stopping the spread of COVID-19 have a deep impact on lives and livelihoods. So we have to find a balanced strategy that manages the risks of the disease against the risks to lives and livelihood. And that's something that we've said since the beginning. We've been very, very clear. A comprehensive strategy is not a comprehensive lockdown. A comprehensive surveillance, finding cases, testing, isolating, using quarantine, caring for cases, educating communities, providing access to hygiene, practicing physical and social distancing where that can be done, and the use of other measures to reduce transmission of infection. It doesn't necessarily mean impact lockdowns that shut down society entirely. And I think many countries around the world, but in particularly Africa, are grappling with this dilemma: how to control COVID-19 while maintaining other essential health services. UNICEF have spoken about this and the likely excess mortality in children that may occur unless we're delivering immunisation, unless we continue to deliver food. David Beasley from the WFP has spoken about the potential issues related to food and hunger as a result of the shutting down of food chains or the loss of food production. So I think in terms of how Africa and African countries deal with this, and again, the Director General may wish to speak, the African Union have very much come together with a comprehensive response plan at the political level. It's great to see that political leadership. I think we're seeing a step forward, working very closely with our Regional Director, Chidi Muweti, on trying to come up with strategies that are adapted to the social and economic of countries. We have issued guidance, very clear guidance on how to adapt that we advise to low-income settings, and we're working very closely. We have a WHO country office in every country in Africa with our resident coordinators, the UN system, and with Ministries of Health and other parts of government to try and ensure that we get maximum control of COVID-19, while the Director General has spoken about the potential impact on TB, on HIV services, on immunisation and other things. And this is a delicate balance. And it does require healthcare assistance in order to be able to do these two things. Governments in Africa need support financing. We thank the World Bank for providing financial instruments and others to help them do that. Every country in Africa now has a government national action plan for the containment of the disease, and we call on all donors and friends of Africa to support those national action plans to ensure that they're adequately financed and to ensure that especially vulnerable populations within African countries, particularly refugees and displaced persons, are not left behind in this process.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Next question is for Gabriela Sotomayor, writing for Proceso. Gabriela? Hello, Gabriela.
Taking the question. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Voy a hacer mi pregunta en español.
I'm going to ask my question in Spanish. Thank you. With regard to this resolution that you were commenting on that will be discussed, and which has elements of Costa Rica's initiative, I would like to hear, Dr. Tedros, if it is going to be a binding resolution, because if that's not the case, what will you be able to do to avoid a war over the vaccine and a battle for the medicine, so that it's nearly always the most powerful that win in these situations? Thank you.
In the resolution that Dr. Maria Angela here, some components of what the President of Costa Rica suggested is there. And of course, after the resolution, you know, it will be up to the countries to follow whether they stick to the resolution or not. But normally it's not binding. It's a general understanding to move forward, and all kind into the resolution are expected to implement it. But I hope with you know, strong political commitment from leaders, that's what the President of Costa Rica is now pushing, President Alvarado. With more political leaders in, the chances of its implementation will be. Part of it will be in this resolution, but the rest will be going to be discussed in other fora. And the launching on May 29, the call to action, will be another very important milestone that can help us to mobilize political commitment and help with the implementation of what will be agreed, but with the continuation of the dialogue on the rest of what the President already proposed.
We'll now go to United News of India, and we have Ajit with us. Ajit, can you hear us? Ajit, can you press unmute, please?
Yeah. Is it okay now?
Yes, now it's okay.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My question is, Jan, I wanted to understand that if inflammatory syndrome is there, like syndrome and other syndromes that you have observed, so is it that risk increases COVID-19 inflammatory syndrome?
So thanks for the question. We know so far very little about this inflammatory syndrome. We are hearing reports about this from a number of countries. We're very grateful for clinicians coming from much detail as they can about the patients that they are seeing with this syndrome. But as I mentioned before, what's really important right now is to determine how many of these children actually have this syndrome. We've given it a name, but we haven't actually described fully what the syndrome is. So what we've done is we put out a case definition, which it might be, what conditions, what illness, what symptoms these children may have, and we need to look. We need to have clinicians use this case definition to determine how many children fit that definition. And then we need specific data collected from each of those patients so that we're seeing. Right now, we have the US CDC, the European CDC, WHO, a number of countries are on alert for this. We need all countries to be on alert for this and for clinicians to look out for this to be a very rare syndrome. And we need to understand if this syndrome is associated with COVID-19 or not. As I mentioned before, some of the children live for COVID-19 while others have. So right now it's a bit of a confused picture. Although more information is coming, we need that information to come in a standardized way so we can describe what the syndrome is and if it is associated with COVID-19.
And I might just add, yeah, things like Kawasaki syndrome and toxic shock and other syndromes are very uncommon, but there is a background incidence. It happens in all populations, but at a very, very low rate. And it's a little like those of you who follow polio. We use a syndrome called acute flaccid paralysis to detect all children who have an unusual paralytic illness, and then we test all those children, and only in a very small number of them do we find the polio virus. But that's the way we find the polio virus for eradication. Is a syndrome or a collection of symptoms. And in this case, we need to look at this collection of symptoms, what's causing it. It will not all be caused by COVID-19. Another, I think, important point is, as the number of cases of any particular disease to a very large number, you start to potentially notice much rare syndromes. So you may not notice the disease emerge in a small group of 10 or 20,000 cases. But if you get to 90 or 100 or 1 million cases, then what is a very rare side effect or consequence of the infection can become apparent. It doesn't mean that the disease is changing. It doesn't mean that the disease is changing in kids. What it means is when you get a very large number of children with the disease, you will see a very rare occurrence happen. In a small number of children, you don't get a chance to see that. So it's very important to reassure parents out there that this does not represent a difference in the way this disease causes disease in children, or a difference in severity, or a change in the way the virus is behaving. Most likely represents is a rare syndrome that may be associated with COVID-19 that we can observe when we have so many cases around the world. And I think that's important. It's very important we pursue it. It's very important we understand it. But it's also important that parents and children understand that this is not reflecting a fundamental change in the way this virus infects children. Also, I did mention in a previous presser, this is a new disease. When new diseases cross the species barrier, they very often don't have what we would call a primary target organ. They very often can infect, and we see this respiratory syndrome, which we can recognize, people short of breath with pneumonia. We've also observed cardiovascular type syndromes. In other words, effects on the heart, effects on the blood system. We've seen effects on the brain and on the neurologic system, and reports of those diseases in older people as well. So what we don't know yet is whether those rare things that happen are associated directly with the virus, and the virus directly attacking the cells in those organs, or are we seeing also the result of the immune response to the virus? And in many emerging diseases, we see both happen. The virus itself can cause damage, and sometimes the immune response to the virus itself can cause damage. That's very much what happens in Ebola virus. Many people, for example, the bleeding associated that people see or have seen on the TV associated with Ebola infection, it's not the virus that causes the bleeding. It's very often the immune response to the presence of the virus that depletes the capacity of the blood to clot. So when a person bleeds, so again, we need to sort out, number one, as Maria said, to what extent is COVID-19 associated with this rare syndrome? To what extent is this a direct effect of the virus? Is it the immune response to the virus? And what's causing what? And it's really important that we understand that, because that's the way we can develop countermeasures and therapies to reduce the impact of this disease, especially in kids.
Thank you, Dr. Ann. One, maybe maximum 2 questions. We go to Dominican Republic, to Diario Libre, is Ambar Castillo.
Hola.
Hola.
Bueno, gracias.
Thank you. Some doctors, and in some countries, such as in Brazil and Bolivia, they've approved the use of ivermectin to treat COVID-19, even though the United States FDA hasn't conclusive studies of the effects of this medicine on humans. I'd like to know what WHO's view is on this, and what are currently the medicines that are recommended by WHO for the treatment of COVID-19. Thank you.
I will start. So there are a number of treatments that are under clinical evaluation for the treatment of COVID-19. None of those are approved for treatment. There are hundreds of clinical trials that are underway. And the reason we need to wait for the results of these studies is because they are evaluating how these medicines, how these drugs work in terms of either preventing infection, preventing someone progressing to severe disease, preventing death, and how safe they are. Do they have any side effects? And the clinical trials that are underway need to have enough people in them to be able to determine whether or not they are safe and effective. WHO has launched the Solidarity Trial, which is a clinical trial focusing on some drugs, some therapeutics, to look at whether or not these are COVID-19. There are more than 2,500 patients enrolled in clinical trial, and the value of something like this at the global level is patients from different hospitals across the world, and you can get to that answer faster. And it will take some time before we have full answers to which treatments work. But right now, we don't have any approved treatments for COVID-19. The treatments that are being used are for symptoms. And some countries are evaluating different therapeutics under these clinical trials.
Yeah, and just to add there, I think what Maria said, the trial designs we have in place are very nimble, and they allow other drugs to be added in as needed, and that means we can move forward faster. And again, we thank the countries who've committed to the Solidarity trials in particular, but there are other trials out there which also need to be supported. I think it's also important to understand that there are many potential drugs that can kill a virus in a test tube, and that's what we call in vitro. It means that you can actually kill a virus by directly applying the drug to the virus gene. You can observe how it interferes with the virus function. It's a very different thing to take that drug and then put it into a human. Therefore, the difference between a drug's effect on a virus out of the body and then that drug's capacity to affect the progress of the virus in a body is very different. And that's why trials are very important. And it's really important, and this is what's happening more and more around the world. People are trying older drugs against the virus and seeing what might work. They're also trying new molecules and seeing what might work. When they find drugs that might work in vitro, then they look for any evidence, observational evidence out there that might suggest that the drug has an impact. And in the trials in which you introduce the drug safely and in a way that you can ensure that if the drug is safe and efficacious, you can begin to use it. But also, if there's a signal that the drug is not safe or not effective, you can avoid using it. That's the principle of randomized control trials and the process of doing that. So it's really important that we encourage innovation, we encourage solutions. But then, as those solutions potentially become available, we need to put a process in the interest of safety, in the interest of efficacy, and in order to make sure that we prevent harm.
Thank you very much. I think we will conclude the press conference with this last question.
The
we will
answer
have
to your question is
audio file available and the transcript posted tomorrow. We will with latest from our regional offices and our country offices on the work WHO is doing on COVID-19. I would like to thank interpreters who were with us today and to wish everyone a very nice weekend.
Yeah, I hope we're still online. On Saturday and Sunday, we will have the third edition of the talk. As you remember, we started it 3 years ago, so we're supposed to do the walk the talk, run or exercise in Geneva a day before the assembly. That's next Sunday. So at this time, everybody will hopefully join us from their houses. This year it will be special because it will start from Manila and stretch up to the Americas and through Geneva. We will also have a special event tomorrow, kick-starting actually the walk the talk in tomorrow with my colleague, the president of the International Olympic Committee. We will sign a memorandum of understanding. This is as part of the healthy populations approach. And the MOU, the signing of MOU between WHO and the International Olympic Committee will also help in kick-starting the walk the talk tomorrow. but a new dawn, a new partnership to invest in populations. So I would like to invite all to join us in this very important event tomorrow and join us in our third edition of Walk the Talk, Health for All. And see you tomorrow at around 11 a.m. Geneva time. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, there would be a time and place. We've had this discussion earlier on if something should happen to a position when you're in a, in a situation like we were, a virus, you never know. But, I've been around smart enough to know things can happen to anybody. You got to be prepared for that. So we had a place, we had an order in place. If something should happen to me, it would transfer over to the lieutenant governor, which is what the Constitution says. But we were prepared for that. I hope for me and my family, I hope we stay safe. But none of us is guaranteed tomorrow. I learned that a long time ago. So what I can tell you is work hard today, do the best you can, and, move forward. That's all we all can do.
One last question. Obviously, this happened yesterday, and I assume you haven't made a decision, but the legislature did put a ballot initiative on the ballot involving redistricting. Have you any thoughts about whether you're going to place that during the August primary or the November general election?
I haven't, Jason. I haven't even. We still got that. We got the Medicaid expansion that we're going to have to make some decisions on, how we're going to. I think both of those things play an important role. I would say the Medicaid expansion part of it, we got to figure out something on that just because of the cost factor of it and where we are in the state of Missouri. So we kind of time to do that we could really figure to move forward because it's going to have an impact on. So we just kind of got to get those things figured out. So those are decisions we'll be making probably, hopefully in the next few weeks, we'll make those decisions so everybody will know. All right. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks.
Joining us from Tallahassee, and he's a former Republican strategist and the co-founder of the Lincoln Project, also the author of the book Running Against the Devil. And Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
A bit about the Lincoln Project, if you don't mind, for those who don't know what it is.
Sure. The Lincoln Project is a group of former Republican consultants and campaign strategists and media of campaigns ranging, from congressional races all the way up to president, who've got a tremendous amount of experience in this field. And all of us have rejected Trump and Trumpism. And we founded this group in order to help defeat Donald Trump in the 2020 election, because we feel he is a threat to our republic. We feel as if his leadership has been demonstrably dangerous for this country. And although we may not ideologically agree with Joe Biden on everything, Donald Trump from office, and to activate using the skills we've built up over a very long period of time, enough of those disaffected voters out there to swing back. The folks who voted from Obama to Trump, for instance, to swing those folks back and to try to build a national coalition that helps us eliminate a guy that we believe is a true danger to the future of this nation.
I should say the books that he wrote are Running Against the Devil. The subtitle is A Plot to Save America from Trump and Democrats from Themselves. He also wrote a book, Everything That Trump Touches Dies. Yes, the previous guests and also the claims from those who support him about the previous administration's actions to the president through Michael Flynn. What do you make of those charges?
Well, look, I think this is a slogan in search of a scandal. What we're seeing right now is another example of the Trump-Fox ecosystem trying to rev up his base with a set of accusations of this deep state conspiracy, which they are incredibly fond of, because it helps their credulous, conspiracy-addled, the segment of their base that's very into the whole QAnon and the whole conspiracy world, believe there's some nefarious plot against Donald Trump. and not that, of course, Michael Flynn was out of school to the Russians and there was doing things that were flagging the national security system. You know, these reports about Flynn did not arise from Barack Obama secretly. They arose from below. They rose from intelligence that was bubbling up into the system, not some imaginary conspiracy that was developed in the Oval Office. And so, you know, I think you're going to see a lot more of this. And there's a reason for this happening. The reason this is happening is that Donald Trump's numbers are terrible. He is slipping in a lot of swing states. His Senate cohort is slipping in their races. Americans don't trust the things he tells them about the most significant crisis of our time, which is the COVID crisis. And they don't think he's doing a good job at managing it. He's also got a gigantic tidal wave of economic bad news. I mean, 3 million more unemployment cases today.
But Michael Flynn's story is not a new phenomenon. This has been going on for a while. So you attribute it directly to the current state.
Flynn lied, and the real question here is, you know, did he not lie to the FBI? He admitted to lying. It is demonstrable he lied. And in fact, the White House itself has no explanation for their former statements that they got rid of Flynn because he lied to the vice president, lied to the chief of staff, and lied to the FBI. This is, as I said, a scandal in search, a slogan in search of a scandal. And this is not part of an actual investigation. This is Bill Barr weaponizing the Justice Department on Trump's behalf. And I think that this is a moment that should be seen from a 30,000-foot view of Trump trying to distract and change the subject from his colossal failure of managing the coronavirus crisis.
How do you weave in then the recent unmasking story that's developed in the last couple of days and the former Vice President Joe Biden being a part of that?
The unmasking story is a gigantic nothing burger. It is the feast, the royale of nothing burgers, because these are pro forma. These unmaskings were not done for some nefarious purpose. There are hundreds and thousands of them done all the time for national security reasons. And those things didn't say, when they asked to unmask certain sources, they didn't say Michael Flynn on them. They didn't know they were going to get Michael Flynn when they opened the box. And so, and I think there's one thing that truly dispels all the theories, and that is that Barack Obama went to Donald Trump directly and said, Michael Flynn is a loose cannon. Michael Flynn is a danger. Michael Flynn is a problem for you. He didn't go to the public and say that. He didn't leak it out there and put it out there in the public-facing area. Trump told Barack Obama, no, you know, I'm going to do what I want, where Flynn ended up. But look, as anybody who's observed the national security system for a long time knows, conspiracies are hard. Big global conspiracies that involve dozens and dozens of people are impossible. This is pro forma. This is mechanical. This is not some conspiracy theory that, in the fever swamp of the Fox Federalist axis. This is a simple mechanical thing where the national security system was flagging behavior by someone. Turns out it was Mike Flynn. And then he chose to lie about it, chose to try to cover his tracks, chose to deceive people about it, and did to his guilt. The only thing that should be a story here is that Bill Barr is attempting to subvert the process of justice by stepping in and trying to rewrite the history of Mike Flynn on Donald Trump's behalf.
Our guest is with us until 10 o'clock, 202-748-8000 for Democrats, 202-748-8001 for Republicans and Independents, 202-748-8002. You can also text us at 202-748-8003. Mr. Wilson, it was on Fox News that it was the Republican Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri was on. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee talking about this topic. We'll show you what he had to say, get your response to it.
The more we learn, the more that we see that the Obama administration took unprecedented action to spy on the Trump campaign during the 2016 presidential election, to mislead the FISA court, a secret court where if you are a target and appear before the court, and we know that the Obama FBI deliberately misled the FISA court. Now we learn about the Flynn nonsense, how they unmasked General Flynn, perhaps breaking protocols and doing so, sharing intelligence that was not supposed to be shared, that's supposed to be classified. The more we learn, the worse it looks, which is why we need a full investigation.
Mr. Wilson, how do you respond?
Look, that's Josh Hawley's opening gambit for his 2024 presidential campaign. This is a very ambitious man. He is very much trying to seize the control of the Trump voter and the Trump narrative for the future. And he understands that almost everything he said there was either a wild exaggeration or an outright lie. This whole idea that there was a conspiracy to the court is not present in the evidence. There were defects in some of the throughout any governmental process. They were not material to the actual pursuit of the Russians. Were doing everything they could to get involved with the Trump campaign. The Trump campaign was willing to listen to them, and they ended up putting themselves as a target. This wasn't a conspiracy against Donald Trump, because if it was a real conspiracy against Donald Trump by this nefarious, all-powerful state, it would have worked. And the evidence that Josh presents there is very thin and very flimsy, but that's all it needs, sort of Trump environment. The Trump media circus only requires that you go out and get the attention, get the clicks, and move forward. I pretty much dismiss what Josh just said there. And again, this is a very ambitious man. He's running for president in 24. He sees himself as the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's very hot today. Please sit down. This is going to be a very hot one, and we apologize to everybody out there that's suffer through it. But you know what? It's better than bad weather. And it's great to be in the Rose Garden. I want to especially thank this group for joining us as we announce a historic groundbreaking initiative in our ongoing effort to rapidly develop and manufacture a vaccine. We're joined by Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, Secretary Mark Esper, Secretary Alex Azar, Chairman of Staff, General Mark Milley, FDA Director Dr. Stephen Hahn, Director of the National Institute of Health, Dr. Francis Collins, Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx. We're joined by a very terrific group of professionals. Tomorrow will mark 30 days since we released the White House guidelines for a safe and phased opening of America. That's what we're doing. It's the opening of America. We're going to have an amazing year next year. We're going to have a great transition into the fourth quarter. As of this morning, almost every state has taken steps to begin reopening, and the American people are doing an extraordinary job of continuing to take precautions while at the same wanting to start, and they will be starting to resume their American way of life. We will be reigniting our economic engines. We're going to be taking care of our most vulnerable, which are our senior citizens and some others. We're going to be working very, very hard on our senior citizens and our nursing homes and various communities to support those this very difficult time. Others don't have the same kind of struggle. For example, today, Secretary Perdue, together with Ivanka Trump, launched the Food Box program, which will provide $3 billion to help small farmers. And it'll be helping farmers, ranchers, but it'll be bringing food to some of the food lines and some of the food kitchens that you've been seeing on television. And I said, why don't we have all of this tremendous food produced by our farmers and our ranchers? And so we're going to be buying $3 billion worth of that food. Great for everybody, our farmers, our ranchers, and the people that need great food. A key feature of our reopening is the most ambitious testing system in the world, by far. America is now conducting close to 300 tests per day, an unthinkable number just a short while ago. More than anybody in the world. Suggesting many states now have excess testing capacity to monitor for new outbreaks. Florida, many other states have so much testing, the testers are waiting for people to show up. It's great. Another essential pillar of our strategy to keep America open is the development of effective treatments and vaccines as quickly as possible. I want to see if we can do that very quickly. When I say quickly, we're looking to get it by the end of the year if we can. We're doing tremendously well. From the earliest days of the pandemic, we have marshaled the genius of American scientists and researchers from all across government and the private sector, from academia, from everywhere, to vanquish the virus, and tremendous strides have been made. I can tell you, I get to see it every day. Scientists at the NIH began developing the first vaccine candidate on January 11th, think of that, within hours of the virus's genetic code being posted online. So January 11th, most people never knew what was going on January 11th, and we were out there trying to develop a vaccine, not even knowing what we were up against. Then my administration cut through every piece of red tape to achieve the fastest ever by far launch of a vaccine trial for this new virus. And I want to thank all of the doctors and scientists involved because they've never moved like this or never even close. The NIH and the HHS have also been working constantly with private industry to evaluate more than 100 potential treatments. The Food and Drug Administration has swiftly approved more than 30 therapies for active trials. That's what we have right now, 130. And another 450 are in the plans, and tremendous potential awaits. I think we're going to have some very interesting things to report in the not-too-distant future. And thank you very much to Dr. Hahn. Through a historic series of funding bills, my administration has $1 billion to support a medical research effort without parallel. I especially want to thank Senator Steve Daines of Montana for his incredible work. He is to secure additional funding for vaccine development. He has been right at the forefront. Today, I want to update you on the next stage of this momentous medical initiative. It's called Operation Warp Speed. That means big, and it means fast. A massive scientific, industrial, and logistical endeavor unlike anything our country has seen since the Manhattan Project. You really could say that nobody's seen anything like we're doing, whether ventilators or testing. Nobody's seen anything like we're doing now within our country since the Second World War. Incredible. Its objective is to finish developing and then to manufacture and distribute a proven coronavirus vaccine as fast as possible. Again, we'd love to see if we could do it prior to the end of the year. We think we're going to have good results coming out very quickly. In addition, it will continue accelerating the development of diagnostics and breakthrough therapies. The great national project will bring together the best of American industry and innovation, the full resources of the United States government, and the excellence and precision of the United States military. We have the military totally involved. Also working very strongly with other countries who are also have some great doctors, and we're all working very closely together, and they're viewing us as the leader, and our the relationship with other countries on solving this problem has been incredible. To date, Operation Warp Speed has brought together all of the experts across the federal government from places like the NIH, CDC, FDA. This historic partnership will now bring together the full resources of the Department of Health and Human Services with the Department of Defense, and we know what that means. That means the full power and strength of the military, and that really talking about the logistics. We get it when we get it. That means the logistics, getting it out so that everybody can take it. And today we're proud to announce the addition of two of the most highly skilled professionals in our country, worldwide respected. Operation Warp Speed's chief scientist will be Dr. Moncef Slaoui, renowned immunologist who helped create 14 new vaccines. That's a lot of our new vaccines in 10 years during his time in the private sector, one of the most respected men in the production and really on the formulation of vaccines. Joining Dr. Slaoui as Chief Operating Officer will be a four-star general who currently oversees 190,000 contractors as commander of the U.S. Army Material Command. That means logistics. That means getting it out. We got to get it out there. So, General, thank you very much. And Doctor, thank you very much. It's great to have you on board. Really highly respected people. Thank you. These two outstanding individuals will provide more details following my remarks. In preparation for this initiative, experts throughout the government have been collaborating to evaluate roughly 100 vaccine candidates from all over the world. They have identified 14 that they believe are working to narrow that list still further. So we started off with over 100. We're down to 14, and we have some really interesting choices to be made. They're doing very well. Through Warp Speed, the federal government is providing unprecedented support to safely expedite the trials, moving on at record speed. While we accelerate the final phases of vaccine trials, Operation Warp Speed will be simultaneously accelerating its manufacturing process. In other words, we're getting ready so that when we get the good word that we have the vaccine, we have the formula, we have what we need, we're ready to go, as opposed to taking years to gear up. We're gearing up. It's risky, it's expensive, but we'll be saving massive amounts of time. We'll be saving years if we do this properly, and that's what we're doing. So we're gearing up on the assumption that we'll have in the near future, relatively near future, a vaccine. Typically, pharmaceutical companies will manufacture a vaccine until it has received all of the regulatory approvals necessary, and this can delay vaccines availability to the public as much as a year and even more than that. However, our task is so urgent that under Operation Warp, government will invest in manufacturing all of the top vaccines before they're approved, so we're knowing exactly what we're doing before they're approved. Better come up with a good vaccine because we're ready to deliver it. This will eliminate any unnecessary delay and enable us to begin providing Americans with a proven vaccine the day our scientists say, we're ready, we got it. And as we work to bring critical medical production back to America, these vaccines will manufacture that we're going to be focused on and manufacturing. They're all going to be right here in the USA. Now, we're working, as I said, and that's fine too. We want to get to the solution. We know exactly where the other countries are, and we'll be very happy if do it. We'll help them with delivery. We'll help them with in every way we can. We have no ego when it comes to this, no ego whatsoever. Operation Warp Speed is also making the necessary preparations to distribute these life-saving treatments at scale. So we're talking about massive numbers so that millions of Americans will quickly have access to them. This includes ramping up production of supplies needed for distribution. And I have to say, we're also very, very much involved in other things other than the vaccine. If you take a look at what we're doing beyond vaccines, it's going to be very interesting, and we may talk about that in a little while. But this includes ramping up production of supply needed for distribution, such as cold chain storage, syringes, and more. We'll have everything right on hand, ready to go. When a vaccine is ready, the U.S. government will deploy every plane, truck, and soldier required to help distribute it to the American people as quickly as possible. America is blessed to have the most brilliant, talented doctors and researchers anywhere in the world. We have the mightiest military by far in the world. Our military is completely rebuilt. Much of the equipment has been delivered, some of it all made right here in the USA. We took over very, very empty cupboards, I say medically. We also had empty cupboards in a military sense. Our military was in sad shape. It was depleted. We now have the strongest military the United States has ever had by far and the best equipment. Outside, that beautiful sound, those are truckers that are with us all the way. Of President Trump as opposed to against. There's hundreds of trucks out there, and that's the sign of love, not the sign of your typical protest. So I want to thank our great truckers. They like me and I like them. We're working on something together. But we have the mightiest way, speaking of truckers, we have the mightiest military in the long history of humankind. We have the best and most devoted workers ever to walk the face of the earth. And now we're combining these amazing strengths for the most aggressive vaccine project in history. There's never been a vaccine project anywhere in history like this. And I just want to make something clear. It's very important. Vaccine or no vaccine, we're back. The process. And in many cases, they don't have vaccines. And a virus or a flu comes, and you fight through it. We haven't seen anything like this in 100 and some odd years, 1917. But you fight through it. And people sometimes, I guess, we don't know exactly yet, but it looks like they become immune, or at least for a short while and maybe for life. But you fight through it. What we'd like to do, if we can, is the vaccine. I think we're going to be doing it, and hopefully by the end of the year. Just as generations of Americans before us faced down the most difficult trials, set their sights on the highest summit and overcame the biggest obstacles, America will meet the moment, and this moment specifically in our time, with unrivaled speed, unmatched skill, and the unyielding spirit of the American people. Our nation will come back stronger and greater than ever. We're going to have a tremendous year next year. We're going to have a really good fourth quarter. We're going to have a very interesting and productive transition quarter. You're our Secretary of the Treasury. I think you feel the same way, Steve. So, and thank you for your good work, really good work. And it's not finished yet, is it? I want to thank Steve Mnuchin, everybody. Now I'd like to ask Dr. Slaoui and General Perna to come up, followed by Secretary Azar and Secretary Esper. Thank you all very much. We're doing something that has never been done before. It's going to result in a tremendous end. I think we're going to come up with a solution to a problem like this country probably has never seen before. But it's an honor to be your president. We're doing a great job. These people are doing an incredible job. The people right here are total professionals, great men, great women. Thank you all very much. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great privilege for me to have the opportunity to serve our country and the world in this remarkable endeavor, extraordinary endeavor. To them do it. The Operation Warp Speed's objectives are very clear. The President has described them, and I believe they are very credible. I also believe they are extremely challenging. However, that our team across the many governmental agencies that are involved in these efforts, the NIH, the CDC, the FDA, ASPR, and of course with the support of the Army and our partners in the private sector, will be able and will do the utmost to deliver these objectives. Instantly, seen early data from a clinical trial with a coronavirus vaccine. And these data made me feel even more confident that we will be able to deliver a few 100 million doses of vaccine. And we will do the best we can to do that. Thank you. We will, of course, also focus on progressing and accelerating development of medicines for those who unfortunately already caught the virus, as well as optimize the diagnostic tests. This will be our focus 24/7 over the next many months. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this great honor for allowing me to be a part of this team. I'm very excited about this. It will be historic as we execute the mission that's been given to us. I also feel very confident that the team will be able to provide the results as directed. It'll be a Herculean task, but the combination of the two main partners between Health and Human Services and the Department of Defense, their combined strengths, partnered with the other teammates, will ensure our success. One of the great advantages that we have as a military is our ability to do logistical and sustainment operations afar. We're just going to apply those capabilities to this mission. This mission is about defeating the enemy. We will defeat the enemy. Why? Because winning matters. And I'm excited to be a part of this team. And Mr. President, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership of this historic effort. Your vision for Operation Warp Speed, setting a goal of a vaccine by January 2021, will be one of the great scientific and humanitarian accomplishments in human history. Announcing the team that can get it done. Dr. Slaoui is arguably the world's most experienced and successful vaccine developer, responsible for some of the major recent breakthroughs in vaccines. General Perna oversees one of the world's largest logistics and supply chain operations, the one that keeps the Army running. 3 highly accomplished career HHs will oversee each area of Operation Warp Speed. Dr. Peter Marks of FDA, Dr. Janet Woodcock of FDA for therapeutics, and Dr. Bruce Tromberg of NIH for diagnostics. This is truly a dream team.
We started work on each of these areas in January, and Congress has provided nearly $10 billion explicitly for this kind of research and development effort. Operation Warp Speed will integrate existing efforts that are coordinating vaccine, therapeutic, and countermeasure development, including NIH's and RADx initiatives. This week, HHS already announced new contracts to manufacture hundreds of millions of needles and syringes, here distributing an eventual vaccine. Finally, the President's efforts will ensure not only that we get vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics faster, but that we get large donations of the eventual products so they're affordable for the Americans. So thank you, Mr. President, and thank you to all of the American scientists and inventors at HHS, at DoD, and elsewhere who are hard at work already. And I really want to express my personal appreciation to Secretary Esper and the Department of Defense, because this partnership is what's going to make endeavor. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership of this bold and historic initiative. The Department of Defense is very excited and committed to working closely with our partners at the government and in the private sector to accomplish the mission we have been given. Winning matters, and we will deliver, by the end of this year, a vaccine at scale to treat the American people and our partners abroad. You know, the Department of Defense has been in this fight since day one, January. We've stayed ahead of the curve every step of the way, and today, on America's streets across the nation, over 60,000 service members from all branches of the service are still out. Nurses in hospitals, whether it's National Guard on the streets of America or the Corps of Engineers continuing to build out capacity in America's hospitals. We are there and we will be there, Mr. President, and we look forward to this next greatest phase of this fight against the coronavirus. We are all in then, we are all in now, and we will deliver on time, bringing to bear the full weight of the Department of Defense, all of our first-class, world-class researchers and scientists, our ability to manage logistics at scale, and our great distributional capabilities. We will deliver, we will win this fight, and Mr. President, thank you again for all that you've done. We will get the job done.
Thank you. I know you will. I know you will. Any questions, please?
Mr. President, you said no vaccine. Vaccine or no vaccine, we're back.
We think we're going to have a vaccine in the pretty near future, and if we do, we're going to really be a big step ahead. And if we don't, so many other cases where you had a problem come in, it'll go away at some point, it'll go away. It may flare up and it may not flare up. We'll have to see what happens. But if it does flare up, we're going to put out the fire, and we'll put it out quickly and efficiently. We've learned a lot. Steve, do you have a question?
We've heard that the vaccine typically would take 12 to 18. How can you do it in a speedier fashion? What makes you think this will work?
Well, they started actually, I guess you heard, in January, early January, and they've been working on it. I know so many, and private companies have been working on it. The government's been working on it. So we've got the time because we put and they've literally been working 20. We've got the time, and we hope to be able to do something by the end of the year or shortly thereafter. But again, you know, it's not solely vaccine-based. Other things have never vaccine, and they go away. So I don't want people to think that this is all dependent on vaccine, but a vaccine would be a tremendous thing. And I will tell you, therapeutically or therapeutics, what's going on there is equally as impressive. We have some things happening. You know, we have the Remdesivir from Gilead. We have other things that are very good. I think that a lot is happening therapeutically. It's relatively speaking equal to what's going on with vaccines, but I think it's doing very well, very well. So therapeutics are a big factor. Yeah, please.
Is there a global competition to develop this vaccine? Like if France develops it first, we're it with us.
Yeah, and we have that very well worked out. Whoever gets it is going to be very proud to give it and develop it. They've developed it, and we'll see what happens. We've got countries that are allies we have some country allies where we're working very closely together. So we're working together with many different countries. And again, we have no ego. We have no ego. Whoever gets it, I think it's great. We're going to work with them. They're going to work with us. Likewise, if we get it, we're going to be working with them. So it's very important. It's a very good question. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, what do you say to those business owners and other people who are really questioning the guidance that the CDC put out last night? There was a concern that it would be overly prescriptive. Now there's a concern it's not prescriptive enough. What are business owners to do?
Well, I thought the guidance was very good. I've heard views on the guidance, and you know, the media will never be satisfied. If we gave you more description, if we gave you less, that would be no good. But I thought it was very good, and I've heard a lot of good things. Go ahead, please, Green.
Do you have a problem or any concerns? Do you have any concerns about the Abbott tests, given some of the new numbers that have come out about?
No, Abbott's a great. It's a great test. It's a very quick test, and it can always be very rapidly double-checked. If you're testing positive or negative, it can always be double-checked. But it's a very good test. Very portable, very quick. Okay.
And then what happens if China is the country that develops the vaccine? What China? Will the U.S. still have access to that vaccine?
I would say the answer to that would be yes. I would say the answer would be yes. Yes, go ahead, please.
Do you mean a fully approved vaccine for everyone?
Excuse me, you're going to have to remove it. You can't hear through you.
Do you mean a fully approved vaccine for the entire general public, the approved vaccine for emergency use?
Caitlin, leave.
Oh, sorry. Step near the mic.
Yeah.
Sorry, let me repeat that now I'm closer to the mic. Do you mean a fully approved vaccine for everyone, the full public, or a partially approved vaccine with emergency use?
No, we're looking for a full vaccine for everyone that wants to get it. Not everybody, but we're looking at a full vaccine. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, Will.
Please.
So the answer is yes. We're working for a fully approved vaccine, but we'll also use the tools we have, for instance, emergency use authorization as appropriate. We use all of our regular tools to bring vaccine available for the entire American population by January.
Okay, and then Mr. President, could you just clarify, why are some of you wearing a mask and why are some of you not wearing a mask?
We've all been tested. I've been tested. We've all been tested, and we're quite a distance away, and we're outdoors. So I told them, I gave them the option. They could wear it or not. So you can blame it on me, but I gave them the option. We could wear it or not. Yeah, please.
Available to the rest? Would a U.S. vaccine be available to the rest of the world at an affordable rate, at a low cost?
The last thing anybody's looking for is profit in terms of what we're doing. They want to get it out. We've had that. We've had a great experience on Remdesivir. We've had a great everything we've done. People are looking to come up with the answer. They're not looking in, you know, typically they're saying, oh, how much am I going to make? How much? They really have been. There's been a great spirit on this. They want to get to the bottom to do that.
Mr. President, the Indian American community is appreciating your help in fighting the vaccine, coronavirus. What is your message to those 4 million Indian Americans?
India has been so great, and as you know, your Prime Minister, a good friend of mine, I just got back a short while ago from India recently. And we're working very much with India, too. And we have a tremendous Indian population in the United States. And many of the people that you're talking about are working on the vaccine, too. Great searchers, yeah. We're working very closely also with India, correct. And say hello to your Prime Minister. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. What steps, if any, is your administration taking to ensure that the communities and the states that are hardest hit will to the vaccine? Have these discussions been had, or are there any plans?
Yeah, I think we've done a good job. Have been hit very hard, New York, New Jersey, et cetera, you know, working very closely with the governors. We've worked with all very good with what we've done on ventilators, with what we've done on testing. We're working with all of the governors. We just sent a big transit package to New Jersey. I just spoke to the governor of New Jersey, who's a terrific person, by the way, I have to tell you. And I just told him a lot of money's coming your way for the transit. And also I spoke with the governor of New York, Governor Cuomo. We just had a conversation yesterday. We're sending them a lot of transportation money. So it's important. A very good relationship working with all of the states, regardless, all of the states. And if we do get fortunate enough, and I think we're skilled enough, but fortunate enough to have a vaccine, it'll get out fairly and quickly.
Do you foresee that states that are hardest hit will have first dibs? So will, like, New York and New Jersey have...
I think that makes sense, perhaps. You know, perhaps it does. But, you know, I would say probably. But I think they're all going to get well distributed. You know, if you remember when we started, we had no ventilators. We had to make them. And we became a very major manufacturer of ventilators. Now we're helping countries all over the world with ventilators. We're sending them to many countries over the world. When we started, we didn't have ventilators. We inherited nothing. I inherited practically nothing from the previous administration, unfortunately. Yeah, go ahead.
It's been 3 months since you signed the China trade deal. Between what's happened with coronavirus and the lagging agriculture point, considering reimposing additional tariffs on China or tearing up the deal in any other way?
Well, I don't want to talk about it. I can say China is buying a lot of our product, but the trade deal, the ink was barely dry when this came in from China, so it's not like we're thrilled. Okay, go ahead, please.
Mr. President, can I add more?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you're standing by the nomination of Michael Pack to lead Voice of America after news that the D.C. Attorney General is...
Well, I don't know what happened. I know that Voice of America is terrible manner, terrible. They're not the Voice of America. They're the opposite of the Voice of America. And we have a man who is very good. I don't know, he's in the nominating process, but I'll have to check that out. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. If public think of getting people back to work and back to schools and so on, is this even possible without a vaccine? How would it be possible without a vaccine? Public confidence.
Well, I think a very big factor, frankly, is that very few people are, you know, we read about all of the very tragic. I've lost friends. Many of us have lost friends. We read about that and we see that, and that's what the news covers. But that's a very small percentage. It's a very, very small percentage. I say it all the time. It's a tiny percentage. The vast majority, many people don't even know they have it. They have it, or they have sniffles, or they have a very minor sign, and they recover. Not only recover, they probably have immunity, whether it's short-term, long-term, but they have probably immunity. And I think people have to understand. That's why I think the schools should be back in the fall. I think that lots of things should happen. I don't think that you should have 70-year-old teachers back yet. They should wait till everything is gone. I don't think you should have a professor that's 65 and has diabetes or has a bad heart back necessarily, or somebody that's older than that. We want to see our schools back. We want to see our country start to work again. We created the greatest economy in the history of the world, and we're going to do it again. And you're going to see that next year, and it's going to start. You'll start to see it in the fourth quarter, maybe even before that. Yeah.
Are you at all, or teachers who are in the school, bringing it home to their families, to their spouses?
I'm concerned about everything, and I'm also concerned about our country. Our country has to get back. And you know, what you're talking is when you are doing what we did with the shutdown, that causes death also. It causes massive depression. It causes drugs. It causes suicide. It causes a lot of problems also. Back to work again. And you see that just looking and reading everything that's... They want to get back. Yeah.
Sir, do you have a plan to prevent the spread? If you reopen
We do. We have a great plan to prevent the spread, but that doesn't mean we're going to close our country for 5 years, okay? Go ahead.
The current death toll is about 86,000.
At current, it's about 86,000, yes.
Do you think that's accurate, or do you think it's higher than that?
I don't, or lower than that. I don't know. I don't know. Those are the numbers that are being reported. I assume they're correct. Unlike other countries, I mean, you have some countries, obviously, you have some that are very obviously, but our numbers are accurate numbers. We don't do anything with the numbers one way or the other. Whatever it is, that's what we do. We take the numbers as reported.
Do you have any indication that they could be lower than that?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. If they were, I'd be very happy to see numbers lower. I'd like to see no death at all. One death is too many. This should have never happened. This came from China. It should have been stopped in China before it got out to the world. We have 186, it's been updated this morning, 186 countries. Each country that's affected is the same thing. Russia now is badly affected. France is badly affected. You look at what each country, and you can say affected or you can say infected. Either way you want to put it. But you look at these countries, look at Italy, and you look at all of these great countries in many cases, how they've had to fight through this. It's a terrible thing that happened. It could have been stopped at the source. It should have been stopped, but it wasn't. Thank you all very much. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
C-SPAN has unfiltered coverage of the federal response to the coronavirus pandemic.
with White House briefings, and our daily call-in program.
Constituents. This is a good law. It gives people a chance. We have members who are going through chemotherapy now. The great John Lewis is going through.
Asli? The song for you is called Wali Maslilan. Welcome! I see we check green, the rainbow too. I see the blue, Winnie the Pooh. And I think to myself, what a limassile. I see tweet of blue and Facebook too. IG is pink. You don't have right, and I think to myself, the freedom in China, so tiny as the hell. Only need the faces and only know the. I see glasses being broken, saying "你妈死了." They only say. I see Chinese crying. I watch them lose. They will get 30 cents less than before. Then I think to myself, what a limassile. I think to myself, what a limassile.
伟大的。
Beautiful place, father, where's mother?
你妈死了。
跟我奶。 VPN to let them access to TMD. They come out need to pay. In the page ดีแล้ว which minimum is that in 普通话 My blow are those people thinking Our mouth are fully educated. Wanna shame climb the wall over the gate just to show the series is gay. Top King freedom, no freedom. การฝ่ามันไล่เล่นกันตามกันตาม have เลยสากัน to protect communism เลยสากัน shoot the front no they shoot the จุดจีรัน China นี่มาสีเหนียวมาใช้สัตว์นี้ all woman disappeared so lonely I begging they come back I have many me na say but father see won't let them again
操你妈你怎么死
Show me at my me hurt which mom 死啦 We have 10 mom 啦你说啥 Talking freedom no freedom woman just only condom man just for fun you 你杀緊 aim them woman shouting 自己人 sorry 你媽死了不踩Suddenly all woman disappeared so lonely I begging they come back I have many me wanna see brother see won't let them again brother see won't let them again brother see won't let them again The tweet kicking ass by the tightest day. You've got coffee the leg disgrace. Cause you only know this shit is free. Say it. Rock you! Yeah! Chinese naughty boy always make noise playing in the tightest day. You've got coffee to lay. You beg this race. Cause you only know this shit is free. Say it. Lima是了 leash. Yeah. Chinese naughty boy always make noise playing in the tweet kicking ass by the tightest day. You've got coffee to lay. You beg this race. Cause you only know this phrase. Say it. Hello, Wu Mao, hello, 听到 Old VPN nearly expire 你妈死啦 Hello, are you retreat to land 你妈死 land Does the sea go me Where's the Wu Mao land Wu Mao land Wu Mao land Keeping pussy Lima City Space As a toy for time to play yeah. Where's wanna see this babe. It's a toy for time to play.
我要买一个电视机，我买什么？我一定买日本的。中国就会爆炸，中国就会爆炸，我一定买日本的。中国就会爆炸，我一电视机，我买什么？我一定买日本的。中国就会爆炸，我一定买日本的。中国就会爆炸，我要买一个电视机，我买什么？我一定买日本的。中国就会爆炸，中国就会爆炸，我就会爆炸，我要买一个电视机，我买什么？我一定买日本的。中国就会爆炸，中国就会爆炸，我一定买日本的。会爆炸，
桜ちゃん